environments for people to interact with this ecosystem using a language called Move, but from a natural language resource.
Is Move a type-safe language?
Yes, it's also verified and provable. Yes, it's a type-safe language, and it has atomic state mutation, except when it doesn't, and that's where we have to create.
What's atomic state mutation?
Atomic mutation means that it either succeeds completely or it doesn't affect the state at all. And so SQL is an example of something that needs to execute the entire query, and if it fails, then the database won't be corrupted, or there's a bug.
Has anyone instantiated a video game based on based on Move?
I kind of think that's what we're doing here. We're creating like a cybernetic game. So
Cybernetic video game, okay?
At the end of this, so if you haven't played with Claude, Claude has made this amazing thing called Model Context Protocol, which integrates any tool. So here's an example of it using EXA. So what are the top 7 Move features on Aptos that an advanced learner is likely to find non-trivial, counterintuitive counterexamples for?
Whoa.
Wouldn't the action space be really complex because it's not just sending a request?
You had a triple negative.
Yes, the action space would be very complex indeed. So the idea is to prove properties and prove like invariants. And so the idea is why use language model whatsoever. So at the end of this, we are going to teach this language model this checklist. I call this parallel sequences because you can pick your own adventure. And so there are several.
Pick your own adventure, okay.
It offers you. So if you wanted to go to number 26, and if you focus on the ones that say do, suggestively, it says do read, and then 11 has reread, like I was saying, is my favorite because it's something that you read at number 6, then you read some more, and then they say you read it, it's 8, and then number 11 you reread it, right? So 8, 9, 10, 11 is like a cycle. Why? Because BlockSTM is about concurrency and parallelism, so it's a very funny like loop thing sort of. But ultimately the actions are read or do. And so what I'm saying is that we can skip the reading by reading with our cybernetic eyes for now, and then because it's safe to prove these things, that might just be okay. And so here's do your first transaction, for instance.
So maybe can I just summarize what I heard from it? What you're saying is that there's a smart contract language, and you're interested in learning this language and generating some example contracts, but you want to not have to do all the reading yourself. So you want to have a language model basically be trained or being able to like read these things, write code, verify the code.
Yes.
That's what you're trying to do.
Yes, and I'm trying to show how to get there by having many language models aiding in operation of these agentic feedback loops, by in parallel processing all these do's, not just one of them, but many, and having this effective parallelism thing happen where a combination of you learning with the machine and establishing these things as effects. So let's think about effects for just a second. So actions and tools lead to changes outside of the model itself. In the outside world, it either pulls information in or posts or something. It's a push and pull. Yep.
Is it closer to the Cardano blockchain or the Ethereum blockchain?
This is a whole different thing called Aptos, which is something that emerged from Facebook actually, having like its own like big government-supported coin, Diem. And then somehow it didn't go through Congress, so the team got disbanded, and so they started Aptos and Sui as a consequence, but the language itself is great. And so this installation here walks you through how to install the SDK, but once again, the idea is to create several agentic flows. And the way I do this, I wanted to just like go through all of the automation tools and see how easy it is it's going to be to teach them this thing. Finally, we have created the environment, we're actually about to start. So this is a
maybe one last question.
Mm-hmm.
So is your focus here, like, what's the interesting thing you're trying to show? Is it more about the tools and the automation and the language models? How much is the actual blockchain part, like, is that an example that you're working with, or is that actually, like, also an interesting part of the talk for you?
As a cyberneticist, you don't get to separate. The patterns rather matter, and the concrete blockchain is probably the critical thing. It's also just one example of a thing that has a more formal, structured, maybe partially or completely specified interactions, that if you separate some of those interactions out for your agents to do versus you, having this like hierarchical coordination between you and agents happen through natural language, and integrating Claude's model context protocol is like one example of something that can handle effects, something that can actually combine different tools under the same interface.
Okay, so I shouldn't necessarily think of these, any part of it as more important than the others. This is all sort of, the language model and the blockchain are sort of equally important here.
Exactly. So cybernetic means whatever succeeds at registering us in a block somehow is the only reality that happens, right? So how get there? It may prove to be important. It may prove to be like negative information. So if I go on tangent, let me know. The idea is at the end of this, we succeed at having interactions either manually or through the use of our synthetic co-generators that lead to something being launched on chain. And so we've expressed the desire for launching some shitcoins. So we launch AM token today or something like that, or Vibes token, like as like
You just automatically generate the token rules?
Token as well as social media kind of like framing. I like to think of this as like the libidinal economy. There's potential information energy that's not fulfilled by existing financial system. Somebody has to step in and provide a more fast, more nimble alternative. Fast finance is about that. So you get the funding while others are waiting for their tax form to come back, right? And so, and to out-coordinate, you have to have very fast things happen in parallel. And
Does this use browser automation?
this uses automation at the level of the wallet interaction itself. So this uses, you can think of it as wallet automation. Yeah, this is wallet automation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like Ethereum wallet automation,
Yeah, in this case it's Aptos.
Aptos.
Yeah, it's just one ecosystem out of many. This same automation, in fact, is supposed to be exactly what you said, to make the chain itself not as relevant. Yeah. So,
Okay, so cross-chain.
yep, this will support cross-chain interactions as well, because
Okay.
cross-chain interaction is also just a message. I am optimistic we'll complete this in general, but I think what we can do is see this as like a starting point of something that you can take with you, and if interested, continue exploring in this like sequence reading over here. Here are all these sequences. Read, do. And so we'll make like an action plan for ourselves. And I think what we'll do is we'll probably try to work on our first coin number over here. We'll just skip directly to where we need to be. And if we launch this coin,
So
I would
many.
count it as a success, right? And so there's Aptos fungible standard, which talks about types. And so there's a type-safe way to define fungible assets in the ecosystem. So move objects can be within this metadata fungible store that is a lot to learn for a person, but we'll teach this to the model, right? So you create primary store enabled assets. There are digital assets as well. This list can include any number of other types of tokens, not just the typical like NFT or non-NFT, right? It can include a custom contract, like royalty module can be something you use, but I haven't seen this work without like outside incentives. You can also create some physical sensor. You can basically generate this based on whether you have like a radio signal in a point of space. And introduce that as like an oracle that reads from the outside world. Oh nice, we actually have some ways of querying this. And you can query with GraphQL, and you have this Aptos indexer. And so what's really interesting is like any like robot or any thermostat, it needs to see the environment, right? It needs to have a sensor and sense it. In this case, this thermostat is the data from the indexer itself. So you can, in this case, it's so much easier to just look at the world because the world, for the purposes of this, is confined to that one streaming data source. And you even can stream the data and make decisions in real time. And so the idea is whatever closes this feedback loop is the thing that's going to continue operating even when I'm not looking at it. And so like how decisions get made during times when I'm not looking have to be specified so that they don't affect some invariance. For instance, here's the transaction thing, and if you perform a transaction, you never want to spend more than you have, right? For instance, or you might want to only interact with non-NFT contracts. And so being able to specify those helps me feel more confident about the system when I'm not looking, versus something in like Solana or Ethereum ecosystem where there is no such guarantee. That if there are reachable states that are not desirable states, those states will be reached at some point.
Like falling off a cliff.
Yeah, exactly. We want to create more cliffs and more ways to fall off in ways that are good for us. And so, for instance, if you wanted to follow the typical flow, there is this much easier tutorial. Is to install the Aptos CLI, where we started going at, clone the SDK, create some sort of move editor, give asset a name, you install the dependencies, you launch a website at the end of this that supports the minting of this token. And here are some interactions with like FA coin packages with Alice and Bob can perform some actions. And so the idea is to have more
So
elements.
Martin, is this mean mint this new token? Like the shitcoin that we want?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. The new token in this is literally the shitcoin that we want. Exactly. Yes. But if you create a schema for studying these things, where every environment variable, every customizable piece of this is generated using a structured grammar, that means you can create like the grammar of governance and the grammar of financial governance. So there's this project called Mathematics of Governance, just to advertise more serious approaches to this, where if you wanted to create a system that does things correctly, I think it's Cybercat Institute. Cybercat Institute is the one that is developing this open game engine. Right? And this open game engine is a way to abstractly define the type.
Oh, that dude, Jules Hedge.
Jules Hedges, yeah. So this mathematics for governance design, and it creates this idea of institutional grammar, which is also a research institute. This institutional grammar research initiative, which allows for you to see these token governance communities as also a kind of institution. And you want to have an open grammar, obviously, because your system is growing. You don't want to have, but you also want to have some grammars that are decidable. The decisions can be like understood, and so to create an institutional grammar for a token is like an implicit thing that happens if you have a verifiable language. And
Is Ethereum a decidable grammar?
there is a formal end. So there are several. So overall, the action space is too broad. Like Solidity is, so like if it's Turing complete, you have to start asking questions about that. But formal end is like a
Formaland.
They work on this thing called Coco
Jesus
right?
Christ.
Formaland is, it's communities that you can actually verify Rust-based clients for Solidity. Paradigm
Holy
Fund is
shit.
doing a lot of that kind of stuff.
Formal land, holy shit.
Yeah, and so here's EVM verification, right? So you can actually verify portions of EVM. You can verify Tezos, that's kind of the whole thing.
Wait, so isn't Tezos built in form of verification?
Yeah, they started from that assumption. And here's the COQ of Solidity. Right, the COQ of Solidity is easy to use, special tool called Proof General. So I actually believe that if you wanted to really learn this from scratch, forcing yourself to learn Emacs so you have this proof assistant is still a worthwhile thing to do, and perhaps more so today, because then you can branch, you can argue about branches, like you're proving if that would be good for me or this would be good for me. I'm trying to create this like closed system where you can understand what the actions you take will have an impact, like what kind of impact your actions will take. Normally, that's not a guarantee these systems give you. You have to buy someone's word for it. They make a DAO proposal, and they tell you a narrative.
So Barton, just to interrupt here. So,
Yeah.
my original motivation to come here tonight was like, hey, cool, let's make a shitcoin.
Yes.
But now I'm understanding that we could literally make like a game theoretic structure that actually makes this super useful in many response.
Thank you. And of course, making one is important. People always say, don't go for the abstract until you've done the basic example. I also say yes, but also don't go for the basic example either until you've done the abstract at the same time. So the idea is you have to somehow see this as like a type. And so what we are doing now is a type. Now, we should probably be recording this, but then you can make proofs directly.
But can we still do the shitcoin?
Yes,
I'd love to
perhaps most
do
importantly.
virtual tonight.
Yes. Let's just follow this tutorial real quick. And then we'll probably succeed if we launch this as a template. Yeah, so let's go through this very quick tutorial. Let's start with our first transaction. So you have to clone the SDK. You can use Homebrew, so let me quickly install Homebrew. I normally don't use Homebrew because it's like too stateful, but unfortunately my...
What does it mean by homebrew is too stateful?
It doesn't manage state in a way that's friendly to two things or more at the same time mutating it. So you install two packages and you have the shared dependency. One of them messes up the dependency, then the next package can't even work. So the idea of Nix and isolating dependency trees, dependency graphs really, is to allow for reproducibility of your state in the environment. So by saying it's too stateful, I guess I'm more correctly saying the way they manage state can lead to race conditions and all kinds of like undefined outcomes. And so conflict resolution is a matter of how good is your data structure sometimes. And theirs is just like Ruby writing files to a file system somewhere. Is not considered from the same level of rigor as others, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It's actually great for us to get started, right? So I'm using Nix instead. So Nix actually creates this like hashed tree data structure, very reminiscent of the blockchain itself. Let's see if we have Brew. Sorry, it's just a very rapid fire problem solving here. But sorry, Brew. No. Okay, so I need to restart the. Let's see. On Brew file.
Just curl, you can curl it.
Yeah, but it probably is not my path. Let's try it again. Yeah, this is not the fun part. This is the boring part. This is the suffering. And so yes, it installs the app. Okay, I'll pay attention this time.
Brew might take a while.